Now, if Jesus is to come to many churches, he will feel like a stranger. And we also will treat him like a stranger. In John 10, he said, I am the door to the sheepfold. In Revelations 3:20, he says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. So from John to Revelations, who has now become the door? Your pastor. Many churches, there's the pastor is the door. Many churches, the doctrine is the door. Many churches, the general overseer is the door. If Jesus said that I am the door in John, and in Revelations 3:20, he has to stand behind the door and knock. The question you should ask yourself is, who has become the door? Now, this verse is not a verse for evangelism, because Jesus was addressing the backslidiness of the 7 churches in Asia Minor. The only church without a problem is Revelations 2:9. It's the church called Smyrna. And Jesus said, I know thy works and thy poverty. It was the only church that Jesus didn't have something against. Every other of the remaining 6, he has something against it. It was the poorest church. Jesus said, Revelations 2:9, he said, I know your works, your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich. And I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Now, this was the only church Jesus didn't have anything against. It was a persecuted church. It was a church in tribulation. It was a poor church. Now, in Revelations 3:20, Jesus is telling the backsliding church that I am now behind the door and I'm knocking. Then he said, if anyone will open. Now, in true spiritual context, according to John 10, the verse 1, the verse 2, the verse 3, Jesus said, if any man does not enter by the door, but climb it any other way, he said the same is a thief and a robber. And he says that there is somebody called the porter. When the porter hears the shepherd, he said he will open the door and the shepherd will come and fellowship with what? The sheep. Now, in Revelations 3:20, he's not talking about a porter anymore, because the porter of the sheepfold is your pastor. Your pastor must hear Christ and open the door for him to enter. Now he said, if anyone hears, in other words, he has fired all the pastors in John chapter 10 so that he can reveal himself in Revelations 3:20. In other words, if anybody is in the church, whether with a title or without a title, but can sense the move of God and open the door, Christ will enter, because the porters he appointed in John 10 have all been fired. So from John to Revelation, he had fired all the pastors. He was now looking for somebody that can deduce and dictate the movement of the Spirit and open the door so that Christ will come into the sheepfold and dine with them.